The stars are right, and that means it's time for another episode of The Whisper in Darkness. I'm your host, the Man from Lang. Thank you very much for joining me today. On this episode, we are reviewing the Mystic cards in the Innsmouth Conspiracy, the 6th Deluxe expansion for the Arkham Horror LCG. There are spoilers throughout if you care about that sort of thing. If you enjoy what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Before we get started, I'd like to thank the patrons of this channel for their tremendous support. The Arkham Horror LCG community is amazing, and these people have gone above and beyond to bring you content like these player card reviews. If you'd like to see your name on this list, head over to patreon.com, sign up for a tier of your choice, and claim your rewards. That would be awesome. Without further ado, let's get started. The first Mystic card in the pack is Sword Cane. It is a 2-cost asset with a combat skill icon, the item, relic, weapon, and melee traits. Playing Sword Cane does not provoke attacks of opportunity. It has the response after Sword Cane enters play, immediately trigger its action ability without paying its cost, and that action ability is Exhaust Sword Cane, Fight, or Evade. You may use your willpower in place of your combat or agility for this attack or evasion attempt. Sword Cane requires a hand slot. What are your impressions of this card, Nate?
Initially, it seems great in Dexter, and it also seems very good against 3 health enemies. Like I was saying before we started recording this section, it's nice to be able to plop this down into play, do a single fight action, deal damage, and then use a charge of Shriveling or Azure Flame or something like that to deal additional 2 damage. So it's nice that it lets you compress actions. It's also nice that you can kind of hold on to it until you actually see an enemy. So if you have like a flashlight or something in your hand, and then you can play this after you've used all the charges on a flashlight or something like that. I think overall it's pretty interesting. Definitely not a main weapon card, but might be a nice way to supplement any additional enemy management you might need.
Yeah, it's not fast, but you do get those 2 actions for the price of 1 on the turn it enters play, and it does allow Mystics to leverage their willpower without tying up an arcane slot. And as you're well aware, arcane slots are in high demand right now, especially in this particular deluxe expansion where there are seemingly a ton of cards. Not necessarily attack or evasion cards that require arcane slots. So having the ability to drop this in your hand slot and still use your willpower for your combat and evasion abilities is pretty awesome. I agree with you that it's pretty. I think it would be pretty good in Dexter, especially with his ability to. I think it's his Elder Sign ability. Does that let him return a card to his hand so he could use it multiple times? So you could drop this down, and then if you get an Elder Sign, you can pick it back up and then use it later at your discretion. I think it's also you could also use it in combination with Sleight of Hand to drop this and then pull it back to your hand after you've, say, emergency evaded an enemy, and then pull this back and then go from there. I guess the biggest problems I see with it is that, one, it exhausts. You have to exhaust it to trigger it, so you're only getting that 1 fight or evade action each turn. And the fight action, both the fight and evade actions lack any sort of bonus. So your willpower needs to be pretty high, or you need to be committing additional cards and or resources to the skill test in order to pass it. And then, of course, the fight action itself lacks any sort of damage bonus. So, like you said, this is not the main weapon in your arsenal, but it does make a nice addition, especially if you're playing those spells with charges and you want to conserve a Shriveling charge, and you've got that 3 health enemy, or 5 health, as the case may be, against some of the enemies in the Innsmouth Conspiracy. So yeah, I quite like it. It does have the relic trait, which I guess Ursula can take it, although Ursula doesn't really want it, considering her willpower is only 3. So she's been, while this could be good for pinging an enemy with a fight action, she's got a better evade already. So this doesn't really help her too much in that regard.
Yeah, I could see it being pretty useful in Patrice too, because you can always play it when you draw it.
Yeah,
Or is that kind of the issue with Patrice, is that certain assets are difficult to play with her because of the way her ability works, and you draw so many cards that you might not be able to play it when you have the resources or what have you. So it
yeah,
could be potentially useful in her as well.
yeah, exactly. You can drop it down and then deal with it, and then save it from getting discarded at some point, or during the following upkeep phase, which is pretty nice. Yeah, I quite like Sword Cane. The art is also pretty cool. So kudos to Patrick Harris for that artwork. What kind of rating do you give this one?
Debating on a +1 to an Elder Sign. I think this card's pretty good.
Yeah, I think +1. I'm gonna settle at +1. Uh, I think it's a very good card for Mystics, and it definitely helps out with that fight and evade, especially if you can get this early in addition to some of your other. I guess the problem with Mystics is always they need their assets before they can really fight or evade effectively, and I don't think this changes that so much because you're still waiting to draw something in order to do some of the main actions of the game.
Mm.
So if it I guess I'm not sure what kind of card would do that, but
This
as
is
far
also
as
nice for picking off like whippoorwills and stuff like that. Stuff that you wouldn't want to waste charges on, but still feel like you need to kill anyway.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, all those annoying one health enemies that you don't want to have to spend charges on. This is great for dealing with those, and I think it's actually a slightly better. Uh, it's good for those one health enemies, but it's also good for like that one-off evade if you need it, because you can get away from the big bads and then move on. So yeah, I think yeah, +1, possibly an Elder Sign, depending on the build and how you're able to leverage that ability. I think some investigators like Dexter could definitely get some additional mileage out of a card like this. The second Mystic card in the pack is Tides of Fate. It is a 1-cost event with a wild skill icon. It has the spell and blessed traits. It is fast and play during any free triggered ability window or at the start of the round. You replace all curse tokens in the Chaos Bag with an equal number of blessed tokens. At the end of the round, replace all blessed tokens in the Chaos Bag with an equal number of cursed tokens. So this seems to me to be a fast way to fix the tokens in the bag, transforming blessed and or cursed tokens into one another, so you can use them to leverage other abilities, such as some of the cards that we are seeing, not necessarily in this deluxe expansion, but I think a lot of the cards that we're going to see in the upcoming Mythos packs that use these tokens to leverage other abilities. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah. My issue with this card is that you have to be kind of all in on the tokens, right? You're not going to play this if you're just kind of messing around with a couple Promise of Powers or a Faustian Bargain or something like that. You have to be all in on it. And then that requires you to play things like Olive McBride and Dark Prophecy to see those tokens, because if you replace all of the curse tokens with blessed tokens and then you don't see any of those blessed tokens, this card really doesn't do a whole lot. So I'm skeptical to see how this card pans out.
Yeah, I see it as more of like if you add a few curse tokens to the bag and then you say using a promise of power, and then you want to swap them for blessed tokens and then play a card like say there's a theoretical mystic card that seals tokens, like Rite of Sanctification, the Guardian card we looked at during that review. So you'd pull those tokens out of the bag and then seal them away, and then be able to use those tokens for something else. So then by the time you get to the replace all blessed tokens in the chaos bag with curse tokens, there won't be any blessed tokens around to replace. The other option, I guess, if there is a card that seals curse tokens to trigger other abilities, you could use this to fix the bag in your favor. Although I think it's not quite as good, just because you have to wait until the following round to actually get those curse tokens, because the swap takes place at the end of the round. So if you want the curse tokens, you're going to have to play this, then wait a round, and then you could theoretically seal them or spend them on other effects, or to trigger abilities like on Eye of Chaos that we saw from the Into Deep Mythos pack. But it's nice. I mean, it's a spell that you can find with an Arcane Initiate. You can make it cheaper with Robes of Endless Night, stuff like that. Safina can copy it with the Painted World for all sorts of shenanigans if she wants to go that route. But my only issue really with this card is that I think it's going to go in a very specific type of deck. It's not something, like you said, that you're just, if you have a couple of curse tokens in the bag, that you're necessarily going to want to play this. My only other beef with it is that in multiplayer, I know playing the Iron Man at Arkham Knights, everybody uses their own chaos bags to speed up the game, and a card like this just makes everybody have to be sorting through their bag and pulling tokens and replacing tokens, and it's a bit of a headache from that perspective. But if you're sharing a bag, it shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, and in solo this doesn't have as much use because there's less tests going on, so you have less of a chance to actually draw the tokens to begin with. So it's interesting, but it's hard to judge without seeing how much support there is for curse and bless tokens.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of cards in this deluxe expansion that add tokens to the bag, and not very many that actually use the tokens for anything. I know playing Sister Mary the other night that I had plenty of blessed tokens in the bag, but really only one card in my deck that really could leverage them, that being Rite of Sanctification. The rest of the time I was just pulling them from tests periodically, which is fine. I mean, it's nice to get that +2 bonus, and it did save me in one particular test, but there were also many tests where I was passing them anyway, and then the blessed tokens were just icing on the cake. So I'm looking forward to having more cards to actually use these tokens rather than just put them in the bag and draw them later.
So what would you rate this card?
I think I'm going to go conservative on this one, and I'm going to give it a 0. Just I think it's hard to I feel like this could potentially be quite powerful in the right deck, but I don't think it's going to see play in a lot of different decks. It's certainly, as a solo player, it's not a particularly interesting card to me, because if you're playing solo, you're probably not adding a lot of curse tokens to the bag anyway, and so playing something like this to mitigate them isn't all that interesting to me.
Yeah, I'm around the same. I think I'd give it an Elder Thing, because I think even in the decks that you would want a card like this, I'm not sure this would be your first. Like, I don't think you'd be very excited to play this card, because if you want curse tokens, there's probably going to be no shortage of adding those to the bag, and if you want blessed tokens, I think there are probably better ways to do that as well. So
yeah, and I think it also can lead to some situations in multiplayer where I know I've heard of groups like going all in on bless or going all in on curse, or you end up with these these mixed group situations where you've got one person who wants blessed and one person who wants cursed, and I guess it's without having played that, sort of having been in that situation where people are sort of fighting over which tokens they want in the bag. I guess if I was going all in on blessed and then somebody played this card and swapped them all for cursed, I would be kind of annoyed, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I have a Rite of Sanctification in my hand, I'm about to play it, and then somebody plays this. It's like, thanks, that's no free assets for you.
Yeah, so I'm skeptical of it.
All right, the next Mystic card in the pack is Ward of Radiance. It is a free event with willpower and agility skill icons, the insight and bless traits. It is fast, and you may play it when an investigator at your location draws a non-weakness treachery card. You reveal 5 random chaos tokens from the chaos bag. If a blessed or elder sign token is revealed, cancel that treachery card's revelation effects. I sat down and did some math last night to see what the odds were on this particular card, and you really need to have at least 2 blessed tokens in the bag to have at least this is an Innsmouth Conspiracy Chaos bag, which starts with 20 tokens. You need at least 2 to have a 50-50 chance of pulling the right token, and your odds only get better from there. I think once you sort of hit 4 or 5 tokens, you're around that 70 to 80% chance of success, which I think is really where you need to be if you want this thing to be decent. I'm not a big fan of cards that have a potential to whiff, and this is I can see myself playing this and then ending up with nothing as a result, just because you get a bad draw from the chaos bag.
Yeah, I could see that. I do kind of like this card, though. I'm kind of a big fan of the Ward of Protection, Deny Existence type cards. And I think the types of decks that are going to play this are going to be playing Olive. They're going to be playing Dark Prophecy, or you could even be playing Jacqueline too. So realistically, you could be pulling 7 or 8 or 10 tokens when you use this card. And that at that point, you need much less blessed tokens in the bag for it to be effective. I like it. The fact that it's insight and blessed, those are good traits to have as well.
Yeah, they synergize with the Vermis Mysteris and Eidetic Memory if you go that route. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the option to play all the reveal token tech like Olive gives this one a definite boost, because you'd reveal, I think, 5, and then one of those you'd reveal 3 for it.
Yep.
So you'd end 7. Up with 7. And I think with what is it, Grotesque Statue, you'd end up with or is Grotesque Statue during a test?
I think it's during a test you can reveal another one, but with Jacqueline you could do an additional 2, so you could do like 7 or 9.
Yeah.
A Dark Prophecy would turn into a 9 as well. So you have a lot of options.
Yeah. If you're playing it in that sort of deck, I think the value of this card definitely rises. If you stick this in your deck and hope for the best, I think you're going to end up being disappointed when you draw a treachery early, and that you need to cancel, but you haven't managed to saturate the bag yet with blessed tokens, that this could whiff on you, in which case I would still prefer just to have the good old Ward of Protection handy. Mm-hmm. It's nice that you don't take the horror with this one, because I know there have been situations where I have played Ward of Protection or haven't been able to play it because that horror would sort of put me over the top, and I don't want to run into the risk of driving my investigator insane. But yeah, I think this is for those decks that are going all in on blessed. I mean, you can play it with speaking of an investigator like Jacqueline. I mean, I I don't think she really has a lot of ways right now to add blessed tokens to the bag, does she?
No, unfortunately not. So I think it's really like Sister Mary and Survivors that have decent ways of adding blessed tokens to the bag.
Yeah, so that would be, um, who would that be? Sister Mary, and then what's her name? Patrice, maybe.
Yep. Yep.
Agnes.
Maybe Agnes. Yeah, I was just gonna say Agnes. I mean, I think it's pretty safe to assume that you'd get more support for a card like this, and in which case its stock definitely goes up. But what do you think of the card as of right now? What would you rate it?
Right now, I'd probably say it's a +1 in a dedicated blessed deck, but probably, I mean, I don't think I'd play it outside of that.
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. I think it's definitely very good in the decks that you can make room for it and you dedicate the time and the resources to be able to add blessed tokens to the bag. Otherwise, it's pretty lackluster when you compare it to something like Deny Existence or Ward of Protection.
I mean, the one thing that is worth noting is that it does target treacheries drawn by other investigators at your location. So if you're playing in a multiplayer format and you've got a couple of people sitting at the table who are throwing blessed tokens into the bag, then this is probably better than Ward of Protection, because you'd have to upgrade to Ward of Protection 2 to get that sort of effect.
Mm. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Which I think is, I mean, having stacked a Ward of Protection 2 on Diana, it can that ability to cancel a treachery can on another investigator can come in very handy indeed. But if you're playing this in multiplayer and somebody's filling the bag with curse tokens as well, then yeah, your odds are going to take a hit. So I think +1 is in that dedicated blessed deck, or in a multiplayer setting where you've got some help. There are several fast cards that we're going to look at that allow, I mean, that could just get crazy in multiplayer, where you could end up you could fill the bag with 10 blessed tokens before the first turn of the game even takes place. So in those types of decks and situations, I think this is pretty good. The final Mystic card in the pack is Promise of Power. It is a skill with 4 wild skill icons. That's right, 4 wild skill icons. The practice trait and the cursed trait. After you commit Promise of Power to a skill test, add 1 curse token to the Chaos bag. If you cannot, take 2 horror instead. This is an obvious Elder Sign right here.
This card is so good. Yeah. Again, this is one of those cards that's similar to like Faustian Bargain and the other Seeker card, Deep Knowledge, that you get so much reward for so little cost that it's hard not to sing praises of this card. I played it in Amanda, and it boosts any stat up to a 6 when you attach it beneath her. It's practice, so you can find it with Practice Makes Perfect, which makes that card very, very powerful during skill tests. This card is just so good.
Yeah, you're getting those four wild skill icons for a curse token that you may never draw, especially if you're say in the late game, you're pushing for the end, you need to make a pivotal test. It's like, okay, I'll throw this in for 4 wild skill icons, and if the game ends next turn, chances that curse token will be seen is very very slim. Yeah, like you said, you can play this in Amanda. You can stack this underneath her and give her basically base or skill values of 6 for all the tests that she takes during her turn, as well as the following Mythos phase. If you're looking for an additional way to add curse tokens to the bag, this is great for her, because each test she takes, she'll be adding a curse token. So you're getting 3 You could get possibly 3 during her turn and then another one during the Mythos phase. So that's another way of adding curse tokens to the bag. And if you're just not playing the curse mechanic, well, man, this card is still worth including in your deck just for the 1 curse token that you may see down the road at some point. I think is a pretty good trade in your favor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard not to like this card. It has 4 wild skill icons. Like, come on.
Yeah, I'm not too certain how often the if you cannot add a curse token to the bag, take 2 horror instead is going to trigger. I see that being primarily in multiplayer where you could potentially have a lot of people adding curse tokens to the bag. I guess theoretically, you could end up in a situation in solo where you've say if you're trying to translate the cryptic grimoire and you're pushing hard to dump curse tokens into the bag, you could end up in a situation where it's like, okay, I want to take this test, but there are no more curse tokens to add, so I'm going to take 2 horror, but I don't see that happening all that often.
Yeah, I think by the time you're doing that, you're probably in a position that taking 2 horror isn't very impactful to the outcome of the game. So yeah, this card's an easy Elder Sign for me.
Yeah, me too. Very very good. That's going to do it for our review of the Mystic cards in the Innsmouth Conspiracy. Final thoughts, Nate?
I think the Mystics made out pretty well overall. Tides of Fate is one of those cards we're going to have to wait and see about, but I think the other 3 cards are at the very worst playable, and at the very top are probably staple cards moving forward.
Yeah, Sword Cane is a very nice card that I am probably going to play in many a Mystic. Mystic being one of the classes I seem to play the most. I'm not sure why that is, but I seem to gravitate toward purple, and this having that hand slot that you can leverage your willpower with is pretty nice. I think Ward of Radiance is, I mean, if you're playing that dedicated Bless deck, or you're sitting at a table where you've got some help and people are dumping Bless tokens into the bag for you, this is pretty good, because then you can target treacheries that other investigators draw at your location. And Promise of Power is just bonkers.
Yeah, so good.
It's just like, okay, how do we make a... It's like that. I don't even think the 1 curse token balances it, to be honest. It just doesn't seem like it's enough for the value that you're getting for this card. That's going to do it for this episode. If you enjoy what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you need to contact me, I can be reached at manfromlang@gmail.com. I am also on Twitter at manfromlang. Until the stars are right, keep your shotgun close and your Elder Sign closer. Take care out there, and happy investigating.